Good. So, thanks for the invitation and talking here. Before talking about communicating our outreach, I would first like to explain to you what our outreach actually is, so the first 5 minutes. So as you can see here, we are working with the fruit fly Drosophila, which is actually an important pillar in the process of scientific discovery. Why would that be? First of all, it's cost effective, fast, efficient, and much of the biology that we are learning from the fly is then applicable to biomedical sciences, and therefore Drosophila is the insect behind 5 Nobel Prizes in medicine. So as William Blake formulated it in 1794, am not I a fly like thee, or art not thou a man like me? However, as Martin Brooke writes quite rightly in his book, we seem reluctant to accept that this tiny creature can teach us anything, let alone anything about ourselves. So we've got a problem here, and I think this needs to be addressed. And that's what we are doing with the fly facility. The Manchester Fly Facility, and most of the work is actually done by me and my brother in arms, Sanjay, who is the facility manager. So now to set this initiative up, of course we had to come up with a good objective, so a long-term objective setting. And what is a good objective? So a good objective, in my view, or one of the best that I'm aware of, was the Rhine Action Program, set up in 1987. Which was basically set up by the Rhine countries in response to the increasing pollution of the Rhine and the 1986 chemical spill by Sandoz. The object they set was bring back the salmon to the Rhine by the year 2000. So it's a very non-technocratic, almost emotional objective, yet was very effective, because in 1997 the salmon was back and pollution was down by 50 to 100%. So I think this is good objective setting. Therefore, we set up the Fruit Fly Action Program to bring back students at the university who find invertebrate model organisms like Drosophila important and cool. So the result of that, I can't report here at this point, but what we know already is that this simple objective triggered activities at many, many different levels. So let me explain to you at which levels. So having this objective, we had to define, of course, the target audiences. The target audiences for this outreach would be the general public, and here in particular family context of future students, as well, of course, teachers and schools of these future students. Then the students which are already at university, and then in addition fellow scientists who would then hopefully support us in our efforts. So once having defined the target audiences, we then start developing sustainable outreach strategies, lasting resources, and suitable dissemination strategies for this. And this all together as a package would then hopefully lead towards quality, higher quality, and momentum. And once that is reached, then eventually we should also reach others, in particular decision and policy makers. And that this strategy in principle works, I think becomes clear that I was just invited by the International Fly Board to present Drosophila science communication at Genelia Farm on a very important workshop, so a new platform on which we can actually propagate these ideas. So let me now briefly explain what kind of sustainable outreach strategies and lasting resources we generated. So if you think of family contexts, then of course we have science fairs where we develop many displays and activities. But in the same time we developed 2 educational YouTube videos of 5 minutes each, which are very popular now. We developed even online computer games with the fly cycle, or simple things like hammer beat patterns for little children. Then the next target, schools. We developed actually content experiments in which we used Drosophila shoulder to shoulder with human examples, and all those then address curriculum relevant specifications of biology. In that way, of course, you have far more impact. And for all these things, we developed a rich pool of teaching resources, like for example here life cycle for fly life cycle for primary schools, or here GCSE A-level synapse explanations. Finally, and actually all this was then put into a system by involving teachers through the Joseph for Schools project. We deliver fully developed lessons which can then be downloaded by teachers and used accordingly. Finally, we address uni students and fellow scientists through the design and publication of training resources, for little things like an image generation tool to facilitate teaching, or here Casey Bergman developed an info tool, a tweet bot, where at Twitter you get informed about every new Drosophila paper that comes up. So all this together, I would say that comprehensive objective-driven initiatives are powerful, and they will lead eventually to great momentum, high quality, because you have a continuous refinement and cross-fertilization across activities, and to lasting legacy, because hopefully you will design high quality resources. However, one problem here is that they don't align very well with current funding strategies, because most of the funding organizations want to always see new things rather than to sustain successful activities. Good, now we have developed all this, and this brings me to the second part of the talk. Who really knows about it, and how can we disseminate all these resources further, which I would refer to as horizontal and meta communication. So first of all, for disseminating your ideas, and especially the whole package of ideas, it is important that you have a good branding. So you need a logo. That logo ideally should already express, and you should seek support by societies on organizations. Without that, you won't get very far, because outreach is increasingly politicized and territorial. So get somebody on board. Twitter, you can see already that the avatars we've chosen reflect pretty well what we are tweeting about. Of course, the topic then will be focused on these things. It should never be exclusively on these things. Of course, you also want to have some private matters in there to have a good mix of tweets. But you should have a strong opinion. I think that drives in more followers, and ideally you link yourself to a blog for that. Next one is that once you have developed resources, these very often become self-sustaining. So for example, our educational videos are constantly being looked at. We still would like to have more views, but it's at the moment around 7K views for 1 year, over 1 year. We want to enhance this further, but it shows you there's a self-promoting resource here already. In addition, we built a home webpage, which is also our essential hub and talks to public, teachers, and fellow scientists. It contains, for example, collections of lay articles. It's a one-stop shop for all outreach-relevant links that we know about the fly. It's worldwide unique. And it has a list of fly history articles and so on. Once you have such platforms, you can then use the Trojan horse strategy, which basically have leaflets which are attractive enough on science fairs, for example, which are attractive enough so children want to take them home, and then have your links on there to your resources, and that way you can enhance the experience in retrospect. And then we thought that all this is still not enough, because teachers and schools have become our main target audience. So what did we do in order to enhance the communication towards teachers further? Here we used, on the one hand, a new webpage which we developed, which at the moment has also about 7K views, so it's slowly coming up. But this, for example, explains the project of Joseph for Schools, delivers all the links to the lectures, and at the same time provides now additional background and lesson support, so teachers can use it for preparation, homework, or for revision tasks. We made then also a video here together with our faculty, a YouTube video about the project, which is rather engaging, has at the moment only 300 views. You do these things, you never know what really will work and which won't work. You can make a best guess, but you will never have a guarantee that things will work out. So further, to address teachers, I've been writing guest blogs, like for example here on a site, pedagu.org, which is for teachers, resources for teachers, which has several K unfollows. Nevertheless, it was not very successful. I then reblogged it on my own blog and have now over 400 shares, which is quite impressive. So you can never predict even the platform you are using. Will it work? Won't it work? I was surprised that it went that way wrong. We go now increasingly also to teacher conferences. Ideally, of course, trying to get to speak on them, like national conferences, but being at least present, talking to teachers and disseminating in that way. And in addition, I've written articles for Biological Sciences Review and School Science Review, which are journals specific for schools and teachers, in order to further disseminate our project ideas and rationale. So finally, and this is my second last slide, of course we have to spread things out to fellow Drosophilists, which I would refer to as horizontal communication, or to bring in more brothers in arms, to gain more momentum overall, that other people start using your resources. So for example, what I've done is I've written several guest blogs. This is a fly-specific blog, which unfortunately is no longer active. But here, Genetic Society of America has, I blogged on there, which were fairly successful in explaining rationale and ideas behind and the reasons for why this is necessary. Something I forgot here, I talked on the European and American Drosophila conference and had there a workshop and a plenary session on outreach. And in addition, a new approach now, just written a conceptual article for finally, hopefully, a biology journal in which all the strategies, thought, rationales are laid out in great detail, which I put up at the moment on bioRxiv, where it has reached in a dynamic, actually an alt metric of 31 a few weeks ago, which is quite high. Yet, and now comes the problem, if I send this now to biology journals, it is very difficult to get it in because the conventional biology journals still don't have a good understanding of the importance of outreach. Good, so taken together in conclusion, what I would say is the more online resources you have and the more communication strategies you use, the more possibilities you will have to cross-refer and advertise your own topic. You build momentum in that way. Doing meta-communication this way, or not only the outreach itself, actually makes you think far more deep about your outreach and about your actual intentions and strategies. Some communication, you will be surprised, will be more versatile across different target groups than you originally intended. Like, for example, we did the film, we did it for actually the general public. Now I show these films even in universities and all our school activities. And you can never predict what of this meta-communication will actually work, and therefore the only thing you have at hand is really try it out. Make a best guess and try it out. And some of it will work, others will just not work as well.